Oh. All righty. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the networking break and maybe had a chance to make some new contacts, refresh some old contacts. And if you didn't catch it yet, be sure to head over to the poll section where we have a new poll open asking what innovations you're most interested in bringing into your operations to make it more plant-forward. Be sure to let us know your thoughts before we do a final check-in on results at the end of our cook-along. You may have noticed that I'm in a bit of a different setting right now. I am actually coming to you from the Copia Theater inside Copia in Napa. We decided that if you couldn't be here with us, we'll bring the theater to you instead. Over here to my left is Chef Toni Sakaguchi, who is a CIA alum herself and the culinary genius behind all of the delicious food that we would normally be consuming together at our in-person conferences. Don't worry, Toni and I are in the same location, but this kitchen suite is large enough that we're gonna stay 6 feet apart from each other. We're going to be cooking 2 types of shakshuka for our very first ever cook-along, and Chef Toni will be leading us in the Tunisian version of this endlessly adaptable dish. Meanwhile, Brad Barnes, also a CIA alum, as well as a certified master chef and director of our CIA consulting unit, will be leading us in the Nigerian version of shakshuka, broadcasting from his kitchen in Connecticut. Hi, Brad.
Hey, Jackie. Thank you.
And of course, Anne McBride is still with us in New Jersey, and she'll be joining us a little bit later. Before we get cooking, we want to give a shout out to Martin Soror Corrado, who suggested this cook-along idea when we first went out to everyone to get feedback on what a virtual conference could look like. Thanks so much for the great idea, Martin. We're glad we could make it happen. A quick note that you can double click on either Brad's feed or our Copia feed on your screen in order to maximize the video while you're following along on the recipe. And we're going to be monitoring the event chat while Toni and Brad are cooking. So if you've got questions, go ahead and type them in there. And we hope you'll be brave enough to turn on your cameras to show us how things are going in your kitchen as well. So be ready to do that. All right, with that, let's get cooking.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Glad you guys are here cooking with us. And so we decided to make shakshuka because it's like a one-pot dish. It means shake up or mix up in Tunisian. And basically it's something that you find throughout North Africa and the Middle East. And so we thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to do. And also because you could pretty much get anything that you needed for it at the market at this time. So, and if you couldn't get it, you could just substitute whatever it is that you could get to make this dish anyways. And so we're going to start off with, I think, Brad, you're going to go ahead and start the Nigerian one and kind of explain what you're doing with the onions and stuff. And then while he's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and we'll start on the Tunisian one and we'll go through the ingredients. Okay.
So
cool.
Thanks, Toni. Appreciate that. And it is indeed, it's a really cool dish. I had the luxury of working on it with some folks in Nigeria last year, so I learned a lot about it. And I'm going to use some pretty high heat here. So my pan that's been on the flame for a little bit. I have a little bit of the peanut oil that I rescued from the coulis process, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so I want to make sure this oil is nice and hot, and we get a little crunch built on these onions with some good caramelization, but really fast caramelization. So I'm going to hit those in the pan, and then I'll throw it back to Toni, and she can start on hers.
Okay. Cool. All right, you guys. So for the so I'm going to go through the ingredients for the Tunisian one, and just so that you can kind of get all your mise en place lined up in the same way, because at one point you'll have to put a bunch of things in at the pot at the same time. So just to kind of keep you in line or kind of following so you're not scrambling. So first thing we have is the canola oil, and then we have some cumin seeds, and we're going to put those into the pot. The oil will be cold, and then we'll add the cumin. And then we're going to go and try to infuse the oil. And then we have onions and red and yellow peppers. If you didn't have yellow peppers, use green, use red, 2 red, whatever you can find. And then after that, we have our spices. We have some toasted and ground coriander, and then some paprika. We have some chopped serrano chilies is what I ended up using, along with some sliced garlic. And then we have some thyme that's just picked and lightly chopped, bay leaves, fresh bay leaves, or you can use dried, and then some parsley, cilantro that's chopped up, and then veg stock and tomatoes, and then the eggs. And then I also have ingredients for the hug, which we'll make later on. But to get this started, we're going to turn your pot onto medium, and you're going to go ahead and add in your oil. And then, so the oil is going into a cold pan, and so are the cumin seeds. And what we want to do is let the cumin seeds kind of warm up in the oil, similar to what Severe did last week on his jackfruit curry, because you want to get the oil the cumin seeds to infuse into the oil so that it carries throughout the whole dish. And then once they start to sizzle and around the edges is when we know that that's when we're going to go ahead and add in the onions and the peppers and let those cook. Because once you add those ingredients in, the cumin seeds will stop cooking or burning, actually, and then because the moisture of the onions and the peppers. All right, so this just needs a couple minutes. Brad, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Toni. So I'm getting these onions, getting a little bit of color on those in the pan. And right about now, I'm going to take a little bit of this yahi spice or suya powder. And that's a Nigerian spice, and it's cumin and onion, garlic, mostly ground peanuts. Delivers a really nice spice. Nigerians like a lot of spice in their food, and it really also gives a great sort of profile to it, a little bit of umami, and as it cooks with the onions, of course, it changes its profile as well in the oil. So I'm kind of doing what Toni's doing. She's tempering spices. I'm frying them in oil. Really important part of the preparation.
Okay. So on the Tunisian one, at this point, your cumin seeds should start to kind of be bubbling and sizzling a little bit, and they should start to get aromatic, and you should be able to smell them. And so what we're going to do now is go ahead is add in your onions and your peppers. Okay, and you can turn up the heat just a little bit. Stir. Okay. All right, and then we're just going to let this saute and give it a generous pinch of salt. And that'll help draw out some of the moisture in the onions and the peppers. And then we're going to just let this cook down for a few minutes. And then we'll add the other aromatic spices along with the garlic and the chilies. Okay, so, all right. Back to you, Brad.
Very good. Perfect timing, Toni. So nice golden color happening on these onions. And with that, I'm going to go ahead. I've got some pretty good heat on it right now. And I'm going to add in my peppers. So I have a mix of their Italian long hots and sweet red peppers. A little bit of a fudge because, you know, in Nigeria, we'd be using roto chilies, which are a type of chili that's akin to habaneros or Scotch bonnets, just not as hot, different flavor, a little meatier. And so I chose the Italian long hot peppers to add that little bit of pepper spice to this, and coupled it with the sweet reds as well. So those are in there now, and I'm just going to get them to get nice and hot and meld in with the onion flavor. Another little touch of the yahi or suya spice, just a little bit. The stuff's strong. It's flavored with cayenne. So that'll get us going for another couple of minutes here.
All right. Cool. Okay, so these are getting close. I just want them to wilt a tiny bit more so that some of the moisture comes out before I add in the other aromatics and stuff. And so I think, we decided to make shakshuka. One of the reasons is because, it's a one-pot dish, but also Brad had done some traveling through Nigeria and worked for the CIA there, Culinary Institute of America, and stuff. But also, it has a pretty rich history. It's been, the dish originated in Tunisia, or some would argue that it was actually Yemen. And then it was brought through the Middle East and through to Israel, actually, with the Tunisian Jews during the mass exodus and stuff. So what actually happens is that you find variations of this dish throughout the region just because it was based on whatever it is that you could find. So you find that tomatoes that originally it had meat in here, so we might have some lamb in here or something. And then other options would be tomatoes and peppers actually show up much later. Okay, so now I can add in my onions and my garlic. Okay.
That was a good time, good history.
Onions, garlic. You're going to go ahead and add your coriander and your paprika. Okay, and then your thyme and a bay leaf. And we're just going to let this cook together for a few minutes. Now, at this point, your pot should start to get really aromatic. Like the spices should start to toast in here. The garlic will start to come out more. Okay, and then just let this sweat for a few minutes. Okay, how you doing, Brad?
I'm good. And so your timing is really right on. And so if you take a look here, everything's sort of coming together there. We're getting a little caramelization on everything. Really, really important for the flavor profiles here. You'll notice I have an iron skillet back on the stove. And pretty soon I'm going to start to rip a little bit of pork belly in there. I also have a deep fryer over here for our coulis crackers. And to tag on to Toni's history there, it's not quite as romantic to get it to Nigeria from what I understand. So Dan had a good question the other day about that. And I texted my clients there, my now friends, and which is really cool. I got friends all over the world because of my work, and how can you beat that? And I said, how to get there? And they believe really that there's such a big Lebanese population that it probably just came there because so many people liked it. And then it caught on maybe with the Nigerian population because it can be made super spicy. It can be cooked in the oro, the ovens that are so frequently used there. So that probably is the extent of the history, but I can't prove that. So we'll just take it as a culinary myth.
We've actually got some questions right now in the chat, if you don't mind my interrupting this recipe for just a moment. Sue is asking, I think this is for you, Brad. Sue is asking, is suya similar to Berber spice? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the Berber
really
spice.
That's a great question, Jackie. It's not really. Truthfully, Berber has a lot more complex flavor profile. Suya or Yahi spice is really primarily, and you can find a lot of versions, salt, peanuts, garlic, onion, cayenne. Berber has some sweet spices in it. It has some chilies in it. Frankly, when I alter the suya spice recipe, I keep some in my house. I put a little Berber, I put a little harissa powder, and it changes the profile.
Gotcha.
Cool. Okay.
Very astute. That was good.
I have to interrupt now. So Tunisian guys, go ahead and add your tomatoes.
Calling out to the Tunisian recipe.
Okay, so now with the tomatoes, we're going to cook these down till they get pretty dry. All right, because we want to just kind of develop the flavor of the tomatoes and let everything kind of meld together. So we're going to just let this kind of cook all together, but let it just kind of turn it on medium low and just let it go. Stir it periodically.
And so this one, everything's cooked enough. I dropped the heat down a little bit. I'm going to put the okra in and let it start to cook. And this stovetop piece is going to make sense to you in a minute. It's also, I wanted to take you through this way because this dish can be readily adapted to volume food service and can be super, super useful. I've used it in a lot of college and university menu systems. And it also is such a flexible base, like we were saying before, that it can do a lot of things. So really, really great dish.
Okay. All right. And, you know, I just threw some salt in here just in case you're wondering what that white powder was. Because I forgot to mention it. So, but yeah, because I kind of feel like every time you add a new ingredient in, you should add a little bit of salt so that it seasons and cooks into it. So.
And I'm with you. So I'm adding a dash of the suya spice. Of course, that's where my salt is.
Okay.
Because there's quite a bit of salt in this one.
Okay. Hi, Anne.
Hello. Brad.
Hello.
So we are getting ready to bring some people up, whoever wants to show. So presumably all of you here are also making shakshuka at home. And so show us where you are in the process and what your dish looks like currently. We're gonna bring some people up.
Okay.
Come on, folks.
We'll just wait. Brad, thank you so much for looking into that. I was really curious about how shakshuka got to Nigeria, and it's really interesting.
No, it was a good question because it wasn't clear to me. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So this is where I'm at. Let me see if I can get it in there.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Which version are you making, Christine?
I'm working with Toni.
Oh, cool.
Looks good, and you have a gorgeous kitchen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that the new house?
This is the new. So excited to be here.
Nice.
And we have Leslie joining us also. Leslie, which one are you making?
I am making the Nigerian.
Great. Show us again so Brad can have a look.
I got to see. Oh, perfect. Look at
That's
that.
good. Oh, hey. Amy.
Looks super good. All right, so we'll tune back in with you, Leslie, and with Christine to see the final version. Hi, Amy.
Hello,
Which
Hello.
shakshuka are you making?
I'm cooking a Tunisian.
All right,
Oh,
let's have a look.
It's coming along. Let's. Oh wait,
Oh, yeah.
I don't. There we go.
There we go.
Yes, gorgeous.
Great. Awesome.
I know we're all getting a lot more technology savvy than we thought, right?
That's right.
Great. So we'll look for the final dish. You'll come back afterwards to share that with us, hopefully. Anybody else who wants to show us where they are? No, we have a couple more people who might. Otherwise, I'll throw it back to Jackie, and I'll come back up in a little bit.
Cool.
I'm seeing a message. We have more people. So until they take me off screen, I'll stay here with you guys. I'll ask the question I have put in the chat actually, which is another curiosity. What are elements that make a shakshuka? So if you don't use that, it cannot be called a shakshuka.
Oh, we have some people joining.
We do have some people.
I am cooking here for Germany. I am Carolina. Let me try to see how I can this around. Hold on.
Hi, Carolina from Germany, you said?
Yeah. Hold on.
Wow.
I am trying.
So you're making dinner.
I don't know how to. Hold on.
Oh, we lost
I
her.
think
We lost your camera. That may just have been. We'll go to Donna in the meantime, and then flip your
Okay.
camera again, Carolina, and we'll see. Hi, Donna.
I am trying to flip my camera. I don't know how.
There she is.
Hey.
Yeah.
There's Carolina. You want to go, Carolina?
Do you want to go ahead
okay,
and show us?
hold on.
Are you able to?
Okay, let me here.
All right. We've lost Carolina. So Donna, show us. Hello. What you're doing?
Actually, I'm completely cheating, and I apologize. But because I make shakshuka almost every day, and I do sort of a Weight Watcher recipe, I start out with beans that I cooked myself, and then I just put tomato sauce and whatever leftover vegetables and an egg on top. But I do have a question for the chefs in terms of the egg on top. My eggs never look pretty on top. You know, I either bake them in the oven or on top for like 9 minutes at 400, or I do it on top, you know, on top of the stovetop. So the yellow never looks pretty. It turns white. Any recommendations?
Let's see. When you finish, are the eggs cooked I mean, like, is the yolk firm, or is the yolk just, or is it still creamy? You know, still like a poached egg.
I'm going for a runny yolk, but maybe I need to cook the eggs separately and then put it in the shakshuka. Is that?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we'll do with volume is like you make the base of the shakshuka, and then to make it easy to serve, you would just go ahead. Oops, we would just go ahead and then put a poached egg on it to order. Because you can have the eggs either already done or do them, in an immersion circulator. But also the white is probably just because it's cooking too long with the lid on. Because the lid is gonna put the egg whites that coat the yolk. Okay, you guys. So at this point, add your stock to it, and then we're gonna start on the on our condiment for this one.
I got a step here too. Tomatoes are going in, and we're gonna get for the oven. So I'm gonna put that pork into the iron skillet, and pretty shortly come back and put it all together.
Yay! Awesome.
And Brad, the pork that you put in the skillet, is that, I can't remember if we talked about in the recipe whether or not that was pre-cooked, but is putting it in the skillet to sort of render out some of that fat, or what is the purpose of sort of heating it in a separate skillet before you put it in?
Twofold. Well, it's gonna be the presentation skillet. So, and what this is gonna do is just get a little bit of the pork fat in the bottom. And then I put the dish on top. That way, nothing's going to stick inside of it. So it is basically slab bacon. You could use a braised pork belly. You could even use a pork roast. But this piece, for ease of preparation today, I used a nice thick sliced applewood smoked bacon.
Awesome, and we love that, sort of showing how the animal-based meat can be used as a flavoring agent and sort of part of the dish, but isn't the main component of the dish.
Absolutely. It's a great little subtle profile to all of this.
Yay. All right. Okay. So this is a little bit soupy, and it looks about where you want it to be. So I'm just gonna let this cook together just a tiny bit more on low, and we're gonna start making our Yemeni hot sauce that's going to go along with this. So we have, it's a plug, and we have, the stove possess again. It's our joke. So for this, what we have is, so figure, this is a Tunisian shakshuka, but also you find most people associate shakshuka with Israel, actually. So what we're going to do is put a nod to Israel by doing a hug with it in terms of the condiment that we're going to serve with it. So basically, it's a Yemeni hot sauce, and we have coriander that's been ground and toasted, some cumin seeds ground and toasted, green cardamom pods that's been pounded, and then black pepper. And then we have garlic and chilies that we're going to go ahead and just pound in the mortar. And actually, I should show you on the seeds for the cumin. Whoops. That you just take them, and you don't want the pods themselves. You just want to have the seeds that are inside of them. So if I can get these out of here.
And I'm doing a little bit of water in mine while Jackie's getting ready to pound her jug.
Awesome. Okay, there's your pods. Woo, moving camera, sorry. And then you can just drop them in and pound them in here, actually. Okay, so for this one, garlic and chilies, we're just going to pound them together in the mortar. And the one thing I didn't mention about the chilies is that taste the chilies before you just go ahead with all of them. Just because, chilies vary in terms of the amount of heat that they have and stuff. And I usually use a whole chili. I'm going to add a pinch of salt in here, too. I usually use a whole chili, veins and seeds and everything, because I feel like that's how you get the true flavor of a chili, by using everything. Because if you take a jalapeno and you just, carefully cut just the exterior without cutting into the center of the chili, it tastes like a green pepper. So we want to use the chili for the flavor that it offers, and also just the way that the heat hits your palate, because they all hit your palate differently depending on the type of chili you're using. Okay, so we got this. I'm going to go with the spices. I'm going to give it a squeeze of lemon juice. Okay. And then I'm going to start adding in the herbs and stuff. And the herbs just kind of go in, and then so I have cilantro and parsley, 1 cup that was just chopped, so it looks like less. And then you just kind of pound this in to make a paste. So think of making like a pesto or curry or something like that, so I'll go ahead and start pounding this together. And sorry if the noise is driving you nuts.
And Toni, while you're doing that, let me just get this started. I want to get this in the oven. So I added the water into my dish here and let that simmer a little bit. And now I'm going to get it into the iron skillet with that rendered bacon. And that's warm, so that's already starting to cook a little bit. And now I'm going to top this with some shrimps. And I have a little suya powder on those. And, you know, shrimp is very much used in Nigeria. They have a particular type of shrimp that they harvest there that is very nice, big, huge shrimp. And so you'll see that in a lot of dishes, highlighted in a lot of ways. And I've chosen to put it into this one today. So now we have this all loaded, and that's going to go in a 470-degree oven until my friend Toni is done pounding her sugar.
That looks great. Oh my goodness.
So does that. That's a great condiment.
I do have a question for Brad while you've got yours in the oven. There's some conversation going on in the chat right now about powdered peanuts or ground peanuts, powdered ground peanuts versus peanut butter for suya. And somebody was mentioning actually that in Zoe's book, the suya recipe does call for peanut butter. But do you have thoughts, Brad, in terms of how it impacts the recipe, or you know, was it just sort of a convenient thing to be able to use peanut butter versus the ground peanuts?
So here's sort of the whole story that I created for you, and it's not an uninformed story, but we've got suya powder, yahi spice, and I'm going to show you kuli kuli today. These are little peanut-based crackers, and basically the process for this is to take roasted peanuts, grind them almost to peanut butter, and then work the oil out of them and replace that oil content with water, give them some spices, some salt, and then make these nice little crackers out of them and fry them. Now, that peanut piece for the suya spice, what I've seen is typically is used ground chopped peanuts, powdered peanuts that they run through a mill. So kind of the broken ones and that sort of thing. If you're making a wet marinade, which is not as prevalent from what I've seen, they certainly could use peanut butter or ground peanuts that are in a paste. And there's all forms of peanuts in Nigeria. It's very staple. So even these kuli kuli, I'm going to fry these and show you those, because sometimes these are ground, then smashed because they're hard and used to make the suya spice. So it's a very, you know, you have to be cautious of life cycle of product in a place like that. There's not a lot of resources, and products are not always easy to get. So all good stuff. And I think you'll enjoy seeing these. These are really tasty if you get a chance to make them.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna say on the sauce, we're gonna go ahead and start to emulsify in our oil and stuff. So we're gonna use extra virgin olive oil, but if you can see, it's kind of at this like rough paste stage. Let's see. And I like using a mortar just because I feel like, although I tell you, if you were in a volume setting, you definitely grab the Roboku because everyone would hate you. So anyway, so
no, I think this cook along is an inadvertent commercial actually for food processors for volume settings. People actually watching you pound it the whole time.
Certainly demonstrates value, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to stir in this, and it's just kind of emulsify in, and then I'll taste it in a little bit and add more salt probably, and maybe more acid, depending on how hot the chilies were and how grassy the spices are. So just in order to balance. Okay. And let's see.
We're
getting
actually
close.
got somebody, I think, who wants to share their shakshuka also. Let's see if we can bring Michael up to share with us. It's always a little bit of a mystery sometimes whether you indicate that you want to share and then there's a pregnant pause as we wait for you to come up to the stage. Maybe
All right.
Michael got camera shy at the last minute, so maybe we'll come back to him. But we are going to have another period of having you all share your versions of shakshuka, so be ready for that.
Okay, and we're going to get ready to start putting our eggs into the Tunisian one. So have your eggs, crack them into a bowl, and then go ahead and add them in. And then, yeah, and then these eggs, these are from, we have some chickens at home, and the girls are really happy right now. So we're getting lots of great eggs from them. So I'm just kind of making little divots in the mixture, just so I can pour the eggs in. And my stove should be kind of simmering, but it's got a mind of its own. It's just doing whatever it wants. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4 eggs. 2. And actually, you want it on a pretty low simmer because we want them to cook kind of slowly. Because they do cook kind of, it's, you know, they cook a little bit unevenly because the bottom is in direct contact and the top is not. So I will put a lid on it and let that kind of cook, let them cook a little bit on the top too. Okay, great. Sorry.
And Toni,
Yeah.
Anne was asking if you could talk a little bit more about the Turkish version of shakshuka as well.
Okay, so you'll find a lot of different variations, I think, of shakshuka. You know, when you look at just where it's been and how it's traveled. And so you'll find that, you know, in Turkey and Greece, you might find that they use different herbs. You might find, put your lid on, you might find some dill or maybe cilantro in there. You also might find, you know, a little bit of meat in there too, and eggplants or something. And then there's a Turkish dish called, I'm going to probably butcher this, but it's menemen. And it's basically tomatoes and peppers and onions that are stewed together. And then like a whipped or a stirred egg, like scrambled egg-ish, is kind of poured in there and then gently kind of stirred through so that it kind of, the eggs will curdle in the dish, but not necessarily be like egg drop soup-ish. You know what I mean? So like
it gets
that
absorbed into
the
soup?
egg. Yeah. And it still kind of curdles like a scrambled egg, but not too scrambled. I hope that makes sense.
That is great. And actually, speaking of eggs, we've got a question from Tamiko. Tamiko's asking, is there another option for a vegan version without eggs? Brad, you were actually talking about some ideas for doing that when we were rehearsing this. Can you share some of those ideas?
Yeah, so if you think of and yes, you can take this a lot of different ways and really maintain the integrity of the dish. So if you think of that pepper onion mixture or Toni's mixture that she has on the stove, and you consider that the base to put something in and finish it in the oven or let simmer on the stove, you could go crazy as you want. You could do whole roasted carrots in there. You could use you could bake avocado in the center of this. You could do a nice celery root steak or rutabaga steak or something like that. So I think there's so much versatility here, and then you've got this 100% complete dish that is totally vegetarian. You can leave them out. I've used smoked onions instead of that to put smokiness back. So yeah, a lot of great ways to be creative with this and keep the dish as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like other options that you have, if you wanted to get more, you could throw some beans in there, or like chickpeas would be delicious in here. I think also, or some sort of other legume. Chickpeas, white beans, you know, lentils, anything in order to increase the protein in there, but also just give it more body so it's more filling, you know.
And actually, speaking of eggs, I feel like, you know, shakshuka has sort of made its way onto a lot of American menus. Generally, I've seen it as kind of a breakfast offering or a brunch offering, maybe like an early lunch offering. And I think that's probably tied very much to the egg being the component in that. So we had sort of been talking about different ideas for menuing it in different day parts. Certainly the beans and the vegetables could sort of add to that. Do either of you, Toni or Brad, have other thoughts in terms of different ways to menu shakshuka or make it, you know, go beyond just that sort of brunch or breakfast menu?
Well, you know, like I was saying, you could top this with anything and make it suit the occasion. I actually love it for breakfast brunch because it also brings in vegetables into a picture where they often are not. So it can help our diet variety that way, and really give you a different taste, a really savory and umami laden process for that belongs in breakfast. I don't know what you think, Toni.
You know, I mean, I would eat this any time of the day. I think, you know, but the other thing is you could add some meat to it, you know, if you wanted to, like throw in either some merguez sausage or something like that, just a tiny bit to flavor it, but not necessarily to make it meaty. You know, I think,
Right.
yeah, it depends. You know, I think it depends. But the other thing I would probably do to make it more of a dinner thing for me is I'd probably add in a lot of greens, like leafy greens. So in addition to like the peppers and the onions and the tomatoes, I'd probably throw in some, you know, chickpeas or white beans, and then fold in some chard or some, you know, some sort of green of some sort, and let that kind of cook. And then the condiments, I think, also really make it, you know, in terms of like cheese or yogurt or preserved lemons or harissa or, you know, whatever you wanted to serve with it. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
Jackie's over here, so I'm looking that
Oh,
way.
Yeah.
In all the places we're looking. Well, and also, I mean, we are seeing, you know, Brad's Nigerian version obviously has the shrimp and the slab bacon. And I think one of the other things we had sort of talked about was the way that this can be kind of served family style, and that sort of sharing kind of gives you more of a sense of that dinner day part, for instance, as opposed to a on the go kind of breakfast. So there are different ways to kind of play with this to menu it on different parts.
Yeah.
Point.
I feel. Yeah, and it's kind of like a dish that seems like it takes a long time to make because the base has to do all the stewing and stuff. But then, you know, you can easily have it made in advance, like we were talking about earlier, and then just finish it with whatever it is that you want to finish it at the end, you know, in terms of serving it and stuff. So yeah.
What other substitutions have you guys seen? And actually, I would say we're coming up on having going to you out there again to see some of your versions. I'm super interested to see, for some of you, maybe you weren't able to find some of the ingredients, maybe you wanted to add something else in there. We heard from Donna who had the beans in there. I'm excited to see what you at home have done to adapt. But I know we were also kind of talking, Toni and Brad, about different things, different versions that you've seen either in other cultural cuisines. And by the way, I just want to say that I think that the clear sign of a winning dish is that various countries and areas and populations are laying claim to it. You know, like, no, we made shakshuka. No, we made shakshuka. That is clearly the sign that it is an amazing dish. But you all have sort of seen variations in different cuisines. Egyptian, I think you were saying, Toni, that there are some variations. What are those kinds of adaptations?
Sorry. Moving target here. Sorry.
Toni is showing us good, proper cleaning protocol, right? Clean up as you go, as opposed to leaving it all for the end.
Yeah.
Throw it in the sink. That's what I'm doing. Throwing it in the sink.
We can't see yours.
That's right. Yeah. See?
All right. So like other variations that you see, you know, that they'll say is related to this, you know, it might not be exactly the same because the spices are different, but you see in Italy, they have like eggs in purgatory, you know, where it's like tomatoes and onions that are stewed together with an egg on it. And then in Mexico, they have something called like, it's huevos avogados. Con rajas, which is like a roasted tomato sauce, almost like a salsa, but except for you cook the garlic in its husk on the burner. You know, you kick the garlic whole with the husk still on a comal or something, and then you peel it and you use that for your roasted garlic. So it's a very different roasted garlic flavor than say like the cook the whole head type.
Or even a raw garlic where it's very bitey and sharp.
Yeah, so it's more smoky and it's just got more depth. And then you would add in like sauteed rajas, which would be peppers, roasted peppers, poblanos, and maybe red peppers or onions, or just maybe just poblanos mixed together with the roasted tomato broth, and poach an egg in there too. So then you got Spain. It just goes on forever.
And Anne sort of asked about this before, but do you have, you know, recognizing that maybe no one really exists as the ultimate shakshuka authority who can actually say this is or this isn't, we see so many variations. To you, in what you've seen, what is it that actually makes a shakshuka? Is it the stewing of the vegetables? Is it the tomato kind and the peppers as the base? Is it the way it's served? What sort of really embodies that shakshuka element?
Let's see. I mean, I
think-
the onions and the peppers and the tomatoes, kind of like.
I think you hit it from the start, Tommy. It's the mixture, and then it's just the cooking process, the one pot. You know, and I think the versions, onion, tomato, pepper, let's call it, and then they're often arranged with other types of things. Look, we got somebody on the screen.
I know we've got Christine back. Christine is on it.
I am on it because it is afternoon here in California, and I'm very hungry. And said, "Is that ready yet?" Oh, I said, "Here, let me pick it up. I'm coming." So I just want to say one thing. You know, I've been really playing with millet a lot lately, and I thought that if you made a millet cake similar to how you would do it with polenta, that would be delicious. That would add another dimension and bring that whole grain in.
And millet is certainly that's a Nigerian piece too. That you often see millet over there.
Awesome. Thank you so
That's
much,
great.
Christine. Leslie, you were brave and turned on your camera to join us. Where's your shakshuka? What stage is your shakshuka at?
It's ready, and I also have a husband at home who's like, "Okay, can we eat this yet?" And I was like, "No, I gotta talk through it. Give me 2 minutes." So it won't let me show my back camera, but here it is. Okay. So I added some shiitake since I have some of those in my pantry. Those were also a great sub for the bacon. I did use bacon, but you could add them if you crisp them up. And I didn't quite have enough fresh tomato, so I subbed in a little bit of tomato paste with water to get that flavor, but cut down on the cooking time. Had to do that with some Indian food at work as well, either paste or crushed or pureed. But I happen to have an open can of tomato paste, so yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Leslie. And I should say, just before we go to Kelsey here, who's ready to share with us, that before you dive in and eat those, be sure to take a picture and tag CIA or put the hashtag CIA Plant Forward so that we can accumulate all of these shakshuka, and we'll have kind of an online shakshuka fest between all of the things. Also, we're going to be eating together, hopefully. So hopefully you'll join us for that virtual community table following this, where we can all eat the shakshuka that we prepared. In my case, I will be eating the shakshuka that Toni prepared, so I get the best deal. Kelsey, let's see your shakshuka.
Okay, so I've done mine. Oh, hi, Chef Toni. It's good to be cooking with you again. But I've done mine with chickpeas instead of the eggs. And I replaced my peppers. I didn't have any serranos or jalapenos, but I had some dried Thai birds, so I threw those in there. So hopefully that turns out all right.
Good. Add some spice.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, nice to see you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And actually, we are coming up on 1 minute left, so maybe I should let Toni and Brad actually, plate up these dishes and finish and talk us through the finishing.
One more
person. Dion?
Yeah.
Hello.
I did a vegan version, and I have a question for you because I topped mine with peanuts, roasted peanuts instead of eggs. It's super spicy, and I'm in Texas. I added a serrano, of course. Whoa, it's good. It's very hot. What should I put instead of the bacon to get that umami flavor to keep it vegan?
I would use smoked mushrooms. It'd be really good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Smoked
Awesome.
mushrooms.
Thank you so much, Dion. All right. We've got to finish these dishes so that I can eat.
Okay. So
There's one.
Oh, that looks awesome. Yeah.
So we got the little coulis in there, little cilantro, and all set.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Yeah, mine, I have mine in the bowl, and then the condiments with it are some yogurt, some more scallions, preserved lemons, and feta cheese. And then we have our sauce in the mortar on the side and stuff. So yeah, I hope you guys had a good time with this. It's great to see everyone's versions. for sure.
Well, and I think it's so cool that you all put this together, and I appreciate being here. And you know, we're all getting used to more of this stuff. So it was great to see everybody's cook-alongs as well. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Brad and Toni, and thank you, Jackie. I'm really jealous that you get to eat Toni's, because all I have is my leftover from the other day, which was very good, but not prepared by your pro like either Brad or Toni. I want to remind you again to take photos, share them on our Instagram, tag hashtag CIA Plant-Forward, and then tag CIA Industry Leadership on Instagram. You can tag also Toni and Brad. Are you on Instagram?
Yep.
What are your handles? Share them with us.
Just my name, Brad Barnes.
Brad Barnes. Okay. And Toni, it's your name also, right? I think we follow both of you. Anyway, we'll help you find Brad and Toni so you can tag them.
LinkedIn too. LinkedIn's a good one.
Yeah. And
I think it's THSAKAGU.
One thing that's been great about seeing the questions, seeing the different version, and then also we had a number of rehearsals, and everyone on the team made shakshuka with whatever they had, basically, from some of the vegetables that Toni was mentioning. Frozen okra, I did it with frozen pearl onions, frozen peas, so pretty much whatever you have will work in a shakshuka, and that's what's wonderful about the dish. So thank you for letting us learn also from you, and obviously what's also great, it's a dish that comes from all over and has so many influences, and I love how you guys are also acknowledging those resources. And I'm getting my own delivery of shakshuka from my husband, who slated it really nicely, so thank you. All right, so we're going to go and all eat together at the table in sessions, and we'll have Jackie and I will be there hosting the table. You also have the normal features of the break in terms of the expo. Please go and say thank you and support our sponsors who've made this possible. Once again, we're really grateful to them. Go network once again also. Go visit the booth, and then come and chat with us. So Brad, Toni, thank you so much. And you're coming to the table as well, right?
I might. I got to go to my booth too.
Okay. Come have a bite first.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.